that didn't work at that store.
Or that.
And they just wrote it all on a line.
Yeah.
An email like a formatted.
Right.
Or, you know, everyone's
typo.
just living through trauma and doing the best they can.
You know
Can we
what?
just leave it at that?
Fair. Not all conversations in that one.
Yes. Speaking of this documentary.
Yeah. All right, let's get to it. We're ready. We warmed up the crowd.
Yeah.
And we're on the Festival Daily Buzz. My name is John Wildman. I'm the editor-in-chief of FilmsGoneWild.com. Here with the Bitch Talk team, Angela Tabora and Erin Lim. And on this segment, we're going to be talking about the film The Mad Writer. It's screening at Slamdance, and we've got a team here. We have Zach Kashkett, the director. We have Austin Hart, otherwise known as L'Orange, the star of this endeavor. He's here. We've got Jon Webb, producer. And we also have Trevor Metscher. We got some DP love on this show. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
All right, we always start this by having our director introduce our audience to the film. They haven't seen it as yet. You're up to bat.
I am. So the film is called The Mad Writer. It's a film. Oh, sorry. It's called The Mad Writer. It's a film about a hip hop producer named L'Orange, and I have bad mic etiquette. I apologize. Yeah, it's a film about a hip hop producer named L'Orange who encounters a stunning diagnosis that's threatening his career and his passion for music. And we kind of chart the journey of his surgeries and hopeful recovery to be able to continue his career.
Okay.
Austin, it's no surprise to anyone when you watch this film how much you talk about hating this process. Or this project. But you end up sharing a lot about your mental health journey and about your health journey in general. Can you talk about opening up, and was there a moment where you're like, okay, I'm doing this and I'm just going to go full force?
Yeah, that was from day one, ironically, because you know, when they pitched me the idea at first, it wasn't interesting at all. It was the idea of, you know, filming me because I was a musician, and it didn't make any sense to me. There are more successful musicians, there are more interesting musicians, and there are people that are doing many more things than I am. But eventually they circled around and pitched me an idea about mental health and about being a person at all, and that is very interesting to me. And so even though I had no interest in the process, I assumed that was probably part of the pitch because he knows who I am, and so there would be no reason to ask me to do this if he was expecting me to be any different than I am. So even though I was reluctant to be a part of it, and I was certainly not easy to work with, I also knew what I signed up for, and the most interesting thing to me was the vulnerability and confronting something about myself, and maybe sharing an experience from someone that doesn't often feel understood with people that may feel the same.
You know, I want to jump in really quickly because, you know, as I was watching the film, you know, along with doing this kind of thing, I also do dog rescue. And sometimes when you're trying to rescue a dog, the dog doesn't want to be rescued. And so you will do a thing where you sit on the sidewalk and, you know, I'm not facing you, I'm not anywhere near here. And, you know, and maybe you'll have a treat in the back of your hand, you know, behind you, and so it'll kind of work its way up to you, and then you can rescue that dog. So Zach, I was thinking about you as I was watching this, like going, did you have to kind of sneak your way into getting Austin to agree to do stuff and to participate?
No.
Because he was so aggressively against it?
That is accurate. That is how I felt.
No, I mean, the truth is, you know, it was hard to get him to sign up to do the film at all. But once he did, he was very on board with what we were doing. But what we were doing was, in part, a meta exploration of making the film at all. Like, we recognized early on that it would be silly to try to hide the fact that he was uncomfortable and that he was, you know, not exactly a game subject, that he was doing it as almost a favor and didn't fully understand what the film was going to look like in the end. But I think it ended up making it a little more interesting and complex and more unique as a film to, like, watch a person who on screen doesn't even understand why you want to film them come around by the end to sort of getting it in front of your eyes. I think it helped the film stand apart.
Yeah, that is true. I don't think I've ever seen a film with a subject such as Austin, and I do want to hear from our DP and our producer, from your perspective. You're putting in all this work, and Austin's like, what? You guys are wasting your time. What are you doing here? How did you capture this side of him that he didn't know he had, and continue to believe in the project even though he didn't?
Well, also from day one, Austin made it clear how uncomfortable he was with it when we did the initial concept shoot down at A3C in Atlanta, Georgia. And I live in Atlanta, and Zach called me and said, hey, we want to do this project, can you come out? And so if you're familiar with Atlanta and you know East Atlanta, it's kind of the hipsterville of the city. And so being out there shooting some B-roll, I happened to catch Austin, who I didn't know who he was at the time, just stepping out before the show, taking a break, smoking a cigarette. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is a great shot. This is very East Atlanta, so I'll shoot it. And after I took the shot, he called me over and said, hey, are you Zach's guy? And I said, yeah. And thanks for participating in this. He's like, well, I'm not really here with a lot of excitement. If it's all the same with you. You seem like a nice guy, but I don't really want to be seen with you. Yeah, I really want to talk to you. So if you could just disappear. And as a cameraman, having gone through a million other worse experiences of physical assault from people who want to hit the camera, don't point that at me. It really didn't seem like anything. And so I went inside, and the Earl is a very dark venue, so it was very easy for me to kind of hide behind people and shoot very long lens and create kind of a voyeur perspective that looked cool, and also I think tapped into some of the isolation he was feeling at the time and where he was in his life.
Trevor won me over a bit that day because he did disappear. I did not see him. And, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah. And the footage from that day looks great. And it was really we talked a lot, Trevor and I, early on about having this sort of voyeuristic view of Austin, trying to shoot from behind walls and behind plants and all this stuff, behind people's heads. And that was the first shoot. It really.
And from that, we also realized that we wanted the texture we wanted to go for in the film. Coming from the North Carolina School of the Arts back, it's crazy to say 12 years ago, back when they still shot a little bit of film. That's our background, was shooting 16 millimeter and having, which is a documentary format by nature. We were shooting narrative projects in school on it just to get the experience, but through that, and actually through some collaborations in school, we found a mutual love of that texture and liveliness of the grain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, kind of, what you're saying, getting the project going and stuff when we were interviewing, I think a really good thing that we did was just kind of create the space to let L'Orange kind of talk and just kind of just always be rolling, always be shooting and everything. And so I think allowing that space really let him just get, open up, really.
Yeah. Trying to have a light foot, a light touch.
Yeah, light touch for sure. Especially, dealing with such subject matter, that's very personal, and we don't want to ever, we never wanted it to feel exploitative, and it's we really want to approach it with care and honesty, and I think I think L'Orange kind of felt that in the space that we created, and so I love how it all turned out.
Again, knowing how Austin felt about this process, I thought it was a little bit daring to include Leah in the story, because once she shows up, I'm like, that's interesting, because how is that going to wind up? I'm not going to give anything away, but can you talk about that process?
Yeah, actually, we were just talking about it outside. We had been shooting L'Orange for about 2 years before he met Leah. So we had even shot him on first dates with other, girls or whatever. And we recognized very early on that this was something different for him. It was incredibly clear. I think Trevor, who I would send Trevor out, by the way, on shoots without me constantly. Probably 65% of the shoots Trevor went on without me. And so a huge part of the look of the film is just Trevor. But we would send Trevor out, and the first time he got footage of them together, I was just like, okay, I've known L'Orange enough to know the look on his face was different. And so, it was very clearly on that if we just kept following that story, it was going to go somewhere for sure. And we were all kind of in a weird stage. Trevor, myself, and L'Orange ended up meeting our future wives at the beginning of the project and marrying them before the project was out. So we all kind of grew up as a part of this project.
Wow.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
That is nice and romantic, but that's also how time works.
Yeah.
Correct. Things happen. Evolve.
Very true.
Sometimes.
Very true.
But I also thought it was pretty brave, because I don't want to get ahead, but if I remember, I think that was one of your guys' first couple dates that we actually went to, and I was like, when I found that out, we were actually kind of already on the way there, and we found out, like, wow, like what a statement for us and to her, to tell her like, hey, I've got these guys following me around.
It's a pretty unique first date.
Right.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the movie that you wound up with, because oftentimes, you know, you'll start into something and you go, well, this is the movie we're making. And either sometime during the shooting, or sometimes you're in the editing bay, you go, oh, holy crap, this is actually the movie right here. Was there a moment or a couple moments that you can point to where you, as the director, said, holy crap, this is the movie?
Yeah, well, I mean, truly, the initial idea was to kind of explore the dichotomy of a person who was potentially insular, you know, didn't go out that much, didn't have too many friends to speak of, and was a closed-off kind of person, but also striving for this career path that wanted fame, or at least, you know, that you're successful when you get fame. I thought that was interesting, but then about a month into, when we tried to get him to agree to make it for about a year, about a month into shooting, he called me and told me he was bleeding from the ears. We were like, oh, well, that's something, that's interesting, and it was a real turning point for the film. I mean, John and I really struggled with feeling like we were going to exploit this tragedy, and we really talked a lot with him about whether or not we should continue the project at all, but when he allowed us to continue, it kind of reframed the project. You know, like, we really set out at the beginning to make more of a comprehensive historical biofilm on him and kind of track his career trajectory, because at the point we started shooting him, he really was blowing up. He had all this stuff out on Adult Swim, and this Harmony Korine directed campaign for Gatorade. I mean, like, he was really killing it, and we just thought someone would make a doc on him eventually. It might as well be us. We knew him very well. But yeah, when that happened, when the ear trouble happened, it sort of helped reframe it, and we realized instead of a more comprehensive biofilm, we could kind of explore a lot of the things we wanted to about his life just by examining what he was going through in that moment in real time, and really make it like more of a window into that experience than try to maybe bite off more than we could chew.
All right, Austin, so you didn't want to do it, but now it's done. I don't know how fun it is for you to do interviews, but you probably don't like this part as much either. But what are your thoughts? Are you happy you've done it? And, you know, it really is going to help a lot of people to see your story.
No, you know, the interviews are actually more fun than the movie for me, you know, because I get an opportunity to talk directly with people, and you and your listeners, and maybe even fill in a few little gaps from the movie in whatever way. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know if happy about it is the right word, and I'm not angry about it. It's just I'm happy it is what it is, and now that I've seen it, it's I think I was expecting some sort of mystery, and that was sort of an anxiety, and then I watched it and I kind of realized I was there for the whole time. And I like how it's put together. I like that it acknowledges some of the things that were very important to me, because one of my biggest concerns with my ear surgery wasn't my hearing with the documentary. It was that it would distract from the reasons why I signed up for this in the first place. Because as much of an advocate as I am for hearing loss, and that's become a part of my life now, mental illness has been a part of my life my whole since childhood, and that's the thing that was the most important to me. And so seeing that acknowledged, and seeing that some people have been able to relate to it, it means a lot to me.
All right. Well, again, the title of the film is The Mad Writer, which is screening at Slamdance. We've been talking to the director, Zach Kashkett. We've been talking to Austin Hart, the featured focus of this film, Jon Webb, producer, Trevor Metscher, the DP on the film. Thanks for being on the show, you guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Claire.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
That was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
That was
Thank you.
great.
Really, really fun.
Yeah.
Pictures?
Can we take a quick pic?
Yeah, please.
Cool.
The mic.
So you gotta remember, no, here's how you remember.
You're Cher?
it.
I'm Cher.
I'm
Here's how you
Erin.
remember it. They're not asking you
Oh my
questions.
God, nice to
This
meet
guy.
you.
No,
Yeah.
yes.
When you're
I'm so
talking,
happy.
talk to
Char talks about you a lot.
Don't get eye contact.
I'm
Stop.
finally gonna hug you.
It's like a human thing. I keep.
I know, but you
People
gotta
talk
stop.
about it.
You are
It's
Angela.
like, think of it
Yeah.
like a,
Well, Shar is the one that
Right.
Maybe Shar's doing it. It's the easiest.
instead of like advice.
You give us
Just
the link. You just.